In a sweltering Miami courtroom, Lena Carter, disguised as a 19-year-old, stood defiant as Judge Roland Whitaker's gavel crashed, sentencing her to 5 years for a petty theft she never committed. His sneer, calling her a troublemaker, dripped with venom, shocking onlookers. Lena's calm gaze hid her FBI badge, her true identity a secret. As bailiffs seized her, a juror slipped her a note. "He knows who you are." Her pulse surged, her cover teetered. A man in the crowd smirked, his eyes promising danger. What would this mean for her mission? Before we dive deeper, let us know where you're watching from. If you stand for justice, hit like, subscribe, and join us tomorrow for a twist you won't believe. Who was that man, and what's his next move? The holding cell's concrete walls closed in on Lena Carter, the air thick with mildew and the distant clang of steel doors. Her wrists ached from the cuffs, but her mind burned with purpose. She was no petty thief, despite Judge Roland Whitaker's gavel slamming down in that Miami courtroom hours ago. As an undercover FBI agent, she had infiltrated the system to expose Whitaker's corruption, his unfair sentences fueling a private prison empire. The juror's note slipped to her as bailiffs dragged her away, weighed heavy in her pocket. "He knows who you are," it read, the words looping in her head. Did Whitaker suspect her true identity? The smirking man in the crowd, his eyes cold as a shark's, haunted her. She couldn't afford to falter, not when black defendants like her fake persona faced years for minor crimes, their lives chewed up by a system Whitaker rigged for profit. Her mission was clear: gather evidence, link Whitaker to the prison CEO, and dismantle their scheme. But that note meant her cover teetered on a knife's edge, and the stakes were climbing. Lena shifted on the cell's rusted bench, her sneakers scuffing the grimy floor. She had to contact her handler, Marcus Tate, before things spiraled further. Hidden in her sock was a burner phone, a lifeline to the FBI. She glanced at the cell block's flickering lights, waiting for the guard's patrol to pass. The hallway echoed with shouts and the jangle of keys, but for a moment it was quiet. She fished out the phone, its screen glowing faintly in the dimness. Her fingers trembled as she dialed Marcus, the signal weak but holding. "It's me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Whitaker's dirty, tied to Coral Reef Corrections. I need you to pull their financials." Marcus's voice crackled through, calm but urgent. "Got it, Lena. We've seen spikes in black convictions. Under him. You're close, but that note's trouble. If he's onto you, we pull you out." She shook her head, though he couldn't see. "Not yet. I'm getting names, dates, proof." Marcus hesitated, then said, "Be careful. Someone's watching." The call ended, leaving her heart pounding. She slipped the phone back into her sock, her mind racing with the possibility of exposure. Footsteps approached, heavy and deliberate. Lena froze as a guard, his badge glinting under the fluorescent light, stopped at her cell. His name tag read, Hicks, and his sneer twisted his face into something ugly. "What's a troublemaker like you hiding?" he spat, his voice laced with contempt. Before she could respond, he unlocked the gate, his boots thudding as he stepped inside. Lena's pulse surged, but she kept her face blank, her training kicking in. Hicks's eyes raked over her, landing on the slight bulge in her sock. "Well, well," he muttered, yanking her leg up. He tore the phone free, its plastic case cracking as he smashed it against the wall. "Think you're slick, huh? Just another black thug breaking rules." His words stung, each syllable dripping with the racism she'd faced her whole career. Shards of the phone scattered across the floor, her link to Marcus gone. Hicks towered over her, his baton tapping his palm. "Whitaker don't like snitches," he growled, then turned and slammed the gate shut, leaving Lena in darkness. Her chest tightened, but she forced herself to breathe. She'd have to find another way to reach Marcus, and fast. The cell block buzzed with tension as morning broke, the air heavy with 90-degree heat seeping through the barred windows. Lena's thoughts churned, piecing together her next move. She needed allies, someone inside who knew Whitaker's game. Across the hall, a young inmate, Tasha, caught her eye. Tasha, barely 20, was serving time for a minor drug charge, her sentence suspiciously long. Lena had overheard her muttering about deals in the courthouse. During yard time, Lena approached her, the gravel crunching underfoot as inmates milled around under the guard's watchful eyes. "Heard you know things," Lena said, keeping her voice low. Tasha's eyes darted, wary, but she nodded. "Whitaker's got people," she whispered. "Cops, clerks, even the DA. They get bonuses for every black kid they lock up. Coral Reef. Pays big." Lena's stomach twisted. It was the lead she needed. "Got names?" she pressed. Tasha hesitated, then leaned closer. "Start with a guy named Kessler, prison exec. But watch your back, they're always listening." Lena memorized the name, her hope flaring. Tasha was a risk, but she was all Lena had. The yard's buzzer blared, signaling the end of rec time. Inmates shuffled back inside, but a scream shattered the air. Lena spun, her eyes locking on Tasha, who was doubled over near the fence, blood pooling beneath her. A shiv glinted in the dirt, dropped by a fleeing inmate. Guards swarmed, their shouts drowning out Tasha's gasps. Lena's heart sank as medics rushed in too late. Tasha's eyes met hers, wide with fear, then went blank. The guards turned on Lena, their batons raised. "You were with her," Hicks barked, his face red. "What did you do, troublemaker?" Lena's hands shot up, her mind racing. "I didn't touch her," she shouted, but the other inmates backed away, fear silencing them. Hicks grabbed her arm, dragging her toward Solitary. "You're done," he snarled, his grip bruising. Lena's cover was fraying, and now she was pinned for a murder she didn't commit. The cell block's walls seemed to close in, her mission hanging by a thread. Solitary was a 6-by-8-foot box, the air stale and the walls scratched with desperate marks. Lena's mind churned, replaying Tasha's words. Kessler, Coral Reef, bonuses. She had to get out, warn Marcus, and find Kessler's trail. A distant alarm blared, followed by shouts of "Lock down!" Through the cell's slot, she saw guards, scrambling, their radios crackling about a fight in the main block. Chaos was her chance. Lena banged on the door, shouting for a guard, her voice hoarse. A rookie, barely 20, appeared, his face pale. "What's wrong?" he stammered. "I'm sick," Lena lied, clutching her stomach. He hesitated, then unlocked the door, his hands shaky. She seized the moment, slipping past him and sprinting down the hall, dodging inmates and debris. Alarms wailed as she reached the service. Exit. Its lock rusted but intact. With a hairpin from her pocket, she picked it in seconds, her FBI training steadying her hands. The door swung open, and she bolted into the humid Miami night, the stars above her only witness. Lena's safe house, a rundown apartment 2 miles from the jail, was her last hope. She navigated back streets, the city's neon lights casting long shadows. Her sneakers slapped the pavement, each step echoing the juror's warning. If Whitaker knew her identity, this was his move to silence her. She reached the apartment, its door ajar, and her stomach dropped. Inside, furniture was overturned, papers shredded, and her laptop smashed. On the wall, scrawled in red paint, was a racial slur, jagged and raw. Lena's fists clenched, rage mixing with fear. Her evidence, her backups, all gone. Whitaker's reach was deeper than she'd feared, and her mission was now a fight for survival. She searched the wreckage, finding a hidden USB drive, its files intact, her only lead to Kessler. But the slur burned in her mind, a reminder of the hatred she faced. Footsteps echoed outside, heavy and close. Lena grabbed the drive and slipped, out the back, her heart pounding as she vanished into the night, unsure who was hunting her. The USB drive felt like a lifeline, but the footsteps behind her were a death knell. Lena's breath caught as she ducked into an alley, the city's, pulse thrumming around her. She had to reach Marcus, find Kessler, and expose Whitaker before her cover collapsed entirely. But the safe house attack meant someone was closing in, and Tasha's death was no accident. Whitaker's empire was watching, waiting to crush her. Lena's resolve hardened. She'd faced racism her whole life, from sneers to batons, but this was bigger. She was fighting for every black life Whitaker had buried in his prisons, and she wouldn't stop. The alley's shadows swallowed her, but the fight was just beginning. Lena Carter's sneakers crunched on the gravel of a deserted Miami lot, the night air thick with 90-degree humidity and the distant hum of cicadas. Her pulse hadn't slowed since escaping the safe house, its walls defaced with a racial slur that still burned in her mind. The USB drive, clutched in her fist, held her only lead to Kessler, the prison executive Tasha had named before her blood stained the jail yard. Lena's FBI cover was fraying, the juror's warning from the courtroom echoing, "He knows who you are." Judge Roland Whitaker's reach was suffocating, his empire built on locking up black lives for profit. She had to meet Marcus Tate, her handler, and pass on Tasha's intel before Whitaker's goons found her. A street lamp flickered as she spotted Marcus's unmarked sedan, its engine idling in the shadows. She slid into the passenger seat, her breath ragged, and handed him the drive. "Tasha gave me a name, Kessler. Coral Reef Corrections. They're paying for black convictions," she said, her voice low. Marcus's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning the lot. "Lena, this is bigger than we thought. Whitaker's got friends in high places. The FBI's getting pressure to pull you out." Her stomach twisted, but she shook her head. "I'm not leaving. Those kids in his prisons deserve better." Marcus sighed, slipping the drive into his pocket. "Then move fast. If he's onto you, you're running out of time." She nodded, but his words felt like a noose tightening around her mission. The meeting ended too quickly, Marcus's sedan vanishing into the night. Lena's mind raced as she headed to a public library, its fluorescent lights a stark contrast to the city's neon glow. She needed hard proof of Whitaker's corruption, something the FBI couldn't ignore. Settling at a computer, she accessed court records, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Case after case revealed the same pattern. Black defendants, often. Teens handed years for minor offenses under Whitaker's gavel. One file caught her eye. A 16-year-old sentenced to 7 years for shoplifting, the paperwork altered to inflate charges. Her heart sank. This was systemic, deliberate, a pipeline to Kessler's prisons. She downloaded the files, her hope flaring, but a shadow moved behind her. A library clerk, Sonia Reyes, approached, her eyes sharp with recognition. "You're digging into Whitaker, aren't you?" Sonia whispered, glancing at the screen. Lena tensed, ready to bolt, but Sonia's voice softened. "I've seen his clerks shred files. I'll help you, but it's dangerous." Lena studied her, weighing the risk. Sonia's access could be a game-changer, but trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. "What's in it for you?" Lena asked. Sonia's face hardened. "My brother's in one of those prisons. Whitaker put him there." Lena nodded, a fragile alliance formed. Sonia promised to smuggle internal memos, and they parted with a plan to meet at dawn. Lena's relief was short-lived. As she left the library, her phone buzzed with an alert. Her bank account was frozen, flagged for suspicious activity. She stared at the screen, her balance at zero, her rent and bills unpaid. Whitaker's influence was everywhere, choking her resources. She called her bank, but the clerk's voice was cold, citing vague regulations. "Must be a mistake," Lena muttered, but she knew better. This was retaliation, a warning to back off. Her chest tightened, the weight of her mission pressing harder. She needed Sonia's memos now, something to force the FBI's hand. She headed to a cheap motel, its neon sign buzzing, to lay low. The room smelled of stale cigarettes, but it was a refuge, or so she thought. At 4 in the morning, her burner phone rang. It was Sonia, her voice shaking. "I got the memos, but something's wrong. Meet me at the pier." Lena grabbed her jacket, the night's humidity clinging to her skin, and raced to the waterfront. Her sneakers pounding the boardwalk. The pier was desolate, the ocean's waves crashing under a moonless sky. Lena spotted Sonia's car, its headlights off, but her gut screamed danger. She approached, her hand brushing the knife in her pocket, a habit from her FBI training. Sonia stumbled out, her face bruised, her arm cradled. "They ran me off the road," she gasped, blood trickling from her temple. "Whitaker's people. They knew I was helping you." Lena's heart pounded as she helped Sonia sit, scanning the darkness for threats. The memos were crumpled in Sonia's bag, detailing Whitaker's bribes from Coral Reef. But before Lena could read them, sirens wailed. Police cars screeched onto the pier, their lights blinding. "Lena Carter, you're under arrest for reckless endangerment," an officer shouted, his gun drawn. Lena's mind reeled. This was a setup. Sonia's accident was being pinned on her, Whitaker twisting the narrative. "I wasn't even there," Lena protested, but the cuffs snapped on, her knife confiscated. Sonia's eyes widened, pleading, but the cops ignored her. As they dragged Lena to the squad car, she saw a figure in the distance, the same smirking man from the courtroom, his silhouette chilling. Whitaker was closing in, and her freedom was slipping away. The police station was a maze of fluorescent lights and slamming doors. Lena sat in an interrogation room, her wrists raw from the cuffs. The lead officer, his badge reading Vance, leaned across the table, his smirk mirroring Whitaker's. "You think you can cause trouble and walk away?" he said, tossing a file labeled Carter. Inside were photos of Sonia's wrecked car, doctored to show Lena's knife at the scene. "Reckless endangerment, maybe assault," Vance said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Black girls like... You always think they're above the law." Lena's blood boiled, but she kept silent, her FBI training holding her steady. She knew Whitaker had orchestrated this, his influence infecting the precinct. Vance left, promising charges. And Lena's thoughts turned to Sonia. Was she safe, or had Whitaker targeted her too? The memos were her only hope, but they were with Sonia, out of reach. Hours later, a rookie cop escorted her to a holding cell, his eyes avoiding hers. As he unlocked the door, he muttered, "Watch your back. Whitaker's got eyes everywhere." The warning echoed the juror's note, and Lena's resolve hardened. She had to escape, find Sonia, and get those memos to Marcus. Lena's chance came at midnight, when a power outage plunged the station into darkness. Alarms blared and shouts echoed as officers scrambled. She slipped a bobby pin from her hair, picking the cell lock in seconds, her hands steady despite her racing heart. She navigated the chaos, dodging flashlights, and slipped out a side exit, into the humid night. Her motel was compromised, so she headed to her apartment, a last resort. The building's stairwell reeked of garbage, and her door was ajar, splintered wood hanging from the hinges. Inside, furniture was overturned, her clothes shredded, and a bag of drugs clearly planted sat on the table. On the wall, another racial slur was scrawled, this one in black marker, its letters jagged. Lena's fists clenched, rage surging. Through her, Whitaker wasn't just silencing her, he was destroying her life, painting her as the criminal she pretended to be. She grabbed a hidden burner phone, her last lifeline, and found a text from Sonia. "Memo's safe, meet me at the old warehouse, midnight tomorrow." Footsteps thudded below, cops or worse, and Lena bolted out the fire escape, her heart pounding. As she vanished into Miami's shadows, the warehouse meeting was her only shot, but the planted drugs meant Whitaker's trap was tightening. Lena's mission hung by a thread, her cover nearly blown, and Sonia's accident was a warning of what came next. She had faced racism her whole life, from sneers in training to slurs in the field, but Whitaker's corruption was a beast she hadn't anticipated. Every black life he'd sentenced, every family torn apart, fueled her fight. But as she melted into the night, one question gnawed. How deep did Whitaker's empire run, and who was the smirking man pulling the strings? Comment number 1: if you're outraged by this injustice, hit like and subscribe to see Lena's next move. Can she trust Sonia, or is the warehouse a deadly setup? Lena Carter's breath fogged the warehouse's grimy window as she waited for Sonia Reyes, the Miami night pulsing with 90-degree heat and distant sirens. Her heart hadn't stopped racing since the police raid on her apartment. The planted drugs and racial slur scrawled in black marker branding her a criminal in Judge Roland Whitaker's twisted game. Sonia's text, promising memos that could expose Whitaker's prison profiteering with Coral Reef Corrections, was her last hope. The USB drive from her safe house, tucked in her pocket, held court records of black teens sentenced to years for nothing, but it wasn't enough without Sonia's evidence. Lena's FBI cover teetered, the juror's warning from the courtroom, and the smirking man's shadow haunting her. Headlights flashed and Sonia stumbled in, her face bruised from the car accident Whitaker's goons had staged. "Got the memos," Sonia whispered, handing over a flash drive. Lena scanned the files, her pulse surging. Payments from Coral Reef to Whitaker, signed orders to inflate charges against black defendants. This was the smoking gun. "We need to go public," Lena said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. Sonia nodded, but her eyes darted to the shadows. "He's watching," she muttered. Lena gripped the drive, knowing time was slipping away. Lena needed a platform to expose Whitaker, someone with reach. She contacted Javier Cruz, a journalist at the Miami Beacon, known for tackling corruption. They met at a dive bar 3 miles from the warehouse, its jukebox blaring salsa over the clink of glasses. Javier's skeptical eyes softened as Lena slid the flash drive across the table, detailing Whitaker's bribes and doctored files. "This could bring him down," Javier said, his voice low. "But Whitaker's got pull. You sure you want this out?" Lena's jaw tightened, images of Tasha's bloodied body and her apartment's slur flashing through her mind. "I'm sure," she said. Javier promised a front-page story and Lena left, her hope flaring for the first time in days. The next morning, the Beacon's headline screamed, "Judge Whitaker linked to prison payoffs, targeting black youth." Protests erupted outside the courthouse, hundreds chanting for justice, their signs waving in the humid air. Lena watched from a coffee shop, her burner phone buzzing with texts from Marcus Tate, her FBI handler. "You did it," he wrote. "Feds are looking into Whitaker." Her chest swelled, the weight of her mission lifting. For a moment she believed she'd cracked Whitaker's empire, that the kids he'd buried in prisons might have a chance. The victory was short-lived. By noon, the Beacon issued a retraction, claiming the expose was based on fabricated evidence from a known con artist, Lena Carter. Lena's heart sank as she read the statement, her face plastered across news channels, labeled a fraud who'd forged the files to smear Whitaker. Protesters turned on her, their chants shifting to accusations of betrayal. Lena's stomach churned. Whitaker had bribed the Beacon, twisting her truth into a lie. She called Javier, her voice shaking. "What happened?" she demanded. His tone was cold, distant. "They had proof you lied, Lena. Bank records, emails. I'm sorry." She hung up, her hands trembling. Whitaker's reach was deeper than she'd imagined, his influence bending the media like clay. Her triumph was ashes, and the city now saw her as the villain. She headed to her mother's house, a modest bungalow 10 miles from downtown, hoping for refuge. As she approached, her breath caught. The windows were shattered, the front door defaced with racial slurs in red paint, jagged and hateful. A crowd of men, their faces twisted with rage, lingered nearby, shouting, "Go back where you came from." Lena's mother, Elaine, stood on the porch, her eyes wide with fear. "They came an hour ago," Elaine said, her voice trembling. "Said you're a liar, a troublemaker." Lena's fists clenched, rage and guilt warring within her. She'd brought this to her mother's door, Whitaker's retaliation cutting deeper than she'd feared. Lena helped Elaine board up the windows, her hands shaking as she hammered nails, the slurs burning into her memory. As they worked, a process server appeared, his suit crisp despite the heat. "Lena Carter?" he asked, thrusting an envelope at her. Inside was a defamation lawsuit from Whitaker, demanding $1 million for irreparable harm to his reputation. The papers listed her frozen bank account, her apartment raid, and the Beacon's retraction as evidence of her malicious intent. Lena's knees buckled. The lawsuit was a death blow, draining her non-existent savings and tying her to a legal battle she couldn't win. Elaine hugged her, whispering, "We'll fight this." But Lena knew Whitaker was strangling her options, leaving her no room to breathe. As the process server left, Lena's burner phone rang, the number blocked. She answered, her gut twisting. "You thought you could ruin me?" A voice hissed, low and venomous. "Your mother's next, troublemaker." The line went dead, and Lena's blood ran cold. Elaine's safety was now on the line, Whitaker's threat a blade at her throat. She had to act, but every move felt like stepping into his trap. Lena packed a bag for Elaine, urging her to stay with a cousin in Tampa, 250 miles away. "I'm not leaving you," Elaine protested, her voice fierce. Lena's eyes stung, but she forced a smile. "I need you safe, Mom. I'll fix this." Elaine relented, and Lena drove her to the bus station, the city's lights blurring through her tears. As the bus pulled away, Lena's resolve hardened. Whitaker had turned her victory to dust, vandalized her mother's home and threatened her life. But she wasn't done. The memos, still with Sonia, were her last card. She texted Sonia, arranging a meet at a park 5 miles away, hoping to regroup and plan. But as she drove, her rearview mirror showed a black SUV tailing her, its tinted windows hiding the driver. Her pulse spiked. Whitaker's goons were closing in. She floored the gas, weaving through traffic, the SUV matching her every turn. The park was her only shot, but the SUV's engine roared, gaining ground. And Lena knew this was no coincidence. Whitaker's empire was hunting her, and her mother's safety hung in the balance. Lena Carter's heart pounded as she swerved through Miami's neon-lit streets, the black SUV's headlights fading in her rearview mirror. The defamation lawsuit from Judge Roland Whitaker, demanding $1 million, burned in her mind, as did the threatening call targeting her mother, Elaine, now on a bus to Tampa, 250 miles away. The racial slurs defacing Elaine's home and the Beacon's retraction, labeling Lena a fraud, were Whitaker's latest blows, turning her exposé into a lie. Sonia Reyes's memos, detailing Whitaker's bribes from Coral Reef Corrections, were her last weapon. But the SUV chase proved Whitaker's goons were closing in. Lena pulled into a park, 5 miles from the courthouse, where Sonia waited under a flickering street lamp, her bruised face tense. "We can't wait," Lena said, gripping the memos. "Whitaker's burying us. We need the city to see this." Sonia nodded, her voice shaky. "There's a community group, Justice Now, planning a rally. They'll listen." Lena's resolve hardened. A protest could amplify the memos, force the FBI to act, and expose Whitaker's prison profiteering targeting black youth. But the smirking man from the courtroom lingered in her thoughts, his shadow a warning of danger. Lena met Justice Now at a community center, its walls plastered with flyers decrying police brutality. The group, led by a fiery organizer named Carla Diaz, embraced Lena's cause, their anger fueled by Whitaker's unfair sentences. Lena shared the memos, her voice steady as she detailed payments to Whitaker for locking up black teens. The room erupted, voices shouting for action. Carla proposed a courthouse protest, and Lena helped plan, distributing flyers across Miami's neighborhoods. By dawn, thousands gathered outside the courthouse, their chants echoing through the humid 90-degree air. Signs reading "Stop." Whitaker's prison pipeline waved high, and Lena's chest swelled as she addressed the crowd, her words amplified by a megaphone. "Whitaker's selling our kids for profit," she shouted, holding up the memos. The crowd roared, their energy a tidal wave, and news cameras swarmed, broadcasting live. For the first time, Lena felt victory within reach, the city's pulse, beating with her mission. Marcus Tate texted, "Feds are watching, keep pushing." The protest's momentum was a beacon, and Lena believed Whitaker's empire might finally crack. The triumph shattered in minutes. Police, their riot gear gleaming under the sun, descended on the crowd, their megaphones blaring orders to disperse. Lena's heart sank. She recognized the precinct captain, a Whitaker ally from her FBI files. Tear gas canisters hissed, their clouds choking the air, and batons swung as protesters scattered. Lena shouted for calm, but a cop grabbed her, his grip bruising. "Lena Carter, you're under arrest for inciting a riot," he barked, his voice dripping with contempt. The crowd's cheers turned to screams as Lena's wrists were cuffed, her megaphone clattering to the pavement. "I'm trying to help," she yelled, but the cop's sneer silenced her. "Troublemaker," he spat, echoing Whitaker's courtroom slur. Lena's blood boiled, the racism raw and unrelenting. Dragged to a squad car, she saw the smirking man in the distance, his nod chilling her. This was Whitaker's doing, his influence turning her protest into a trap. The courthouse faded as she was driven away, her victory crushed under the weight of his power. The jail's intake room reeked of bleach, its fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Lena stood in a line of arrestees, her cuffs cutting into her skin. The booking officer, his badge reading Gorman, smirked as he processed her. "Black girls like you always cause trouble," he said, his words a knife. Lena's jaw clenched, but she stayed silent, her FBI training keeping her composed. In the cell block, inmates taunted her, their voices laced with racial slurs, egged. on by guards. "Whitaker's pet project," one hissed, her eyes glinting with malice. Lena's cell, a 6-by-8-foot cage, offered no respite. Hours later, as she sat on the rusted bunk, 3 inmates cornered her, their fists clenched. "So who messed with the wrong judge?" the leader growled, swinging a makeshift shiv. Lena dodged, her training kicking in, and grappled the weapon away, pinning the attacker. Guards rushed in, but instead of helping, they restrained Lena, blaming her for the fight. "You're a walking riot," Gorman said, shoving her into solitary. The door slammed and Lena's chest heaved, the staged attack a clear message from Whitaker. Her mission was unraveling, and her cover hung by a thread. Solitary's darkness was suffocating, the air stale with despair. Lena's mind raced, replaying the protest's roar and the cops' slur. She needed to escape, find Sonia, and recover the memos. A faint tap on the door broke her thoughts. A guard, young and nervous, his badge reading Ellis, slid a key through the slot. "You don't belong here," he whispered. "Whitaker's got this place wired, but I saw the news. Get out now." Lena's heart leaped, a rare ally. She grabbed the key, her hand steady, and unlocked the door, slipping into the corridor as alarms blared. She navigated the chaos, dodging patrols, and escaped through a service exit, the humid night air hitting her like a wave. Her relief was fleeting. A text from Elaine's co-worker flashed on her burner phone. "Hate mail at the clinic. Slurs, threats. They know she's your mum." Lena's stomach twisted, Whitaker's retaliation striking again. She called Elaine, safe in Tampa, but the fear in her mother's voice cut deep. "They won't stop, Lena," Elaine said. Lena's resolve wavered, but she pushed it down, vowing to protect her. Lena headed to a safe house, a cramped apartment 3 miles from the jail, to regroup. Inside, she found her protest evidence, photos and videos uploaded to a cloud drive gone. The laptop screen showed a hacking alert, and a note taped to it read, "You can't win, troublemaker." Lena's fists clenched, rage surging. Whitaker had stolen her proof, leaving her with nothing but Sonia's memos, still with Sonia. The protest, her moment of defiance, was erased, and her mother's safety was under siege. Lena texted Sonia, arranging a meet at a dockside lot, but her burner phone's battery flickered, her resources dwindling. As she left the safe house, a shadow moved across the street, the smirking man's silhouette unmistakable. Whitaker's. Empire was relentless, and Lena's fight was far from over. Comment number 1: if you believe Lena's cause is worth fighting for, hit like and subscribe to see her next stand. Will Sonia's memos be enough, or is Whitaker's trap already set? Lena Carter's sneakers slapped the pavement as she sprinted through Miami's back streets, the humid 90-degree night clinging to her skin like a second shadow. The courthouse protest, her fleeting triumph, had crumbled under Judge Rowland. Whitaker's retaliation, her arrest for inciting a riot, the racial taunts and staged attack in jail, and the hate mail targeting her mother's workplace. Her protest evidence, stolen by Whitaker's hackers, left her with only Sonia Reyes's memos, proof of his bribes from Coral Reef Corrections. The smirking man's silhouette spotted outside the safe house confirmed Whitaker's goons were hunting her. Lena, now a fugitive after escaping jail, needed allies to survive. She reached a dockside lot, 5 miles from the courthouse, where Sonia waited, her bruised face lit by a flickering street lamp. "You're late," Sonia whispered, her eyes scanning the darkness. "Justice Now's underground now after the protest. Come with me." Lena nodded, her FBI cover teetering, the juror's warning echoing. "He knows who you are." She followed Sonia, her heart pounding, knowing Whitaker's empire was closing in. Sonia led her to a warehouse, its rusted walls hidden behind shipping crates, a hub for Justice Now's activist network. Inside, a dozen organizers huddled over laptops, their faces grim. Carla Diaz, the group's leader, greeted Lena with a nod. "You stirred the city," Carla said, "but Whitaker's untouchable unless we hit harder." Lena handed over the memos detailing Whitaker's payments for sentencing black teens to Coral Reef's prisons. The group pored over the files, uncovering contracts linking Whitaker to Kessler, the CEO of Coral Reef. "These contracts show millions in kickbacks," Sonia said, her voice fierce. Kessler's office has ledgers, hard proof. We get those. Whitaker's done. Lena's pulse surged. This was her chance to end him. The group planned a sting to infiltrate Kessler's office, using Lena's FBI skills to bypass security. She memorized the layout, a high-rise 10 miles downtown, but doubt gnawed at her. Whitaker's reach had crushed her protest, her mother's, safety and her reputation. Could she trust this network, or was Sonia's loyalty a facade? The sting operation launched at midnight, the city's skyline glowing under a crescent moon. Lena posed as a janitor, her fake ID clipped to a jumpsuit, her knife hidden in her boot. Justice Now's hacker, a wiry kid named Rico, disabled the building's cameras, giving her a 30-minute window. She slipped into the high-rise, its marble lobby silent, and rode the service elevator to the 20th floor. Kessler's office was a fortress, its door secured by a biometric lock. Lena's heart raced as she applied a gel from her FBI kit, lifting a fingerprint from a coffee mug Kessler had left behind. The lock clicked and she entered, her flashlight sweeping over mahogany shelves and a safe. She cracked it in minutes, her training steadying her hands, and found ledgers detailing payments to Whitaker, each entry a nail in his coffin. Her hope flared, but a voice crackled in her earpiece, Rico's panic cutting through. Someone's. On to you, Lena, security's coming. Her cover was nearly blown, Whitaker's network sniffing her out. She stuffed the ledgers into her bag, her breath hitching as footsteps echoed outside. The office door burst open, and 3 security guards, their guns drawn, stormed in. "Hands up!" one shouted, his eyes narrowing at her black face. Suspicion, raw. Lena's mind raced, her FBI training kicking in. She dove behind a desk, tossing a chair to block their path, and sprinted for the fire exit. Alarms blared as she hit the stairwell, her sneakers pounding concrete, the guards' shouts echoing. She burst onto the docks 3 miles from the high-rise, the ocean's salt air stinging her lungs. The guards pursued, their flashlights slicing the darkness, but Lena knew Miami's underbelly. She weaved through crates, her bag of ledgers, bouncing and ducked into a drainage pipe, its damp walls muffling her gasps. The guards passed, their radios crackling, and Lena emerged, her pulse thundering. She'd escaped, the ledgers hers, but the close call was a warning. Whitaker's security was tighter than she'd thought, his empire's eyes everywhere. She texted Carla, confirming the ledgers were secure, and headed to a new safe house, her body aching but her resolve unbroken. The safe house, a cramped loft 2 miles from the docks, was Justice Now's last refuge. Lena arrived, her clothes soaked with sweat, and handed the ledgers to Carla. The group cheered, their hope reigniting, but Lena's relief was fleeting. A distant explosion shook the windows, and screams erupted outside. She rushed to the balcony, her heart plummeting. Flames engulfed the safe house's lower floors, black smoke billowing into the night. Firefighters swarmed, but the blaze was deliberate, gasoline stench heavy in the air. Lena grabbed Carla, pulling her to the fire escape, the ledgers still in her bag. They climbed down, the metal scorching their hands as the group scattered into the streets. At the base, Lena found a note pinned to a crate, its words chilling. "Your mother's life is next, troublemaker." Her stomach twisted, Whitaker's threat echoing the call after the lawsuit. Elaine was in Tampa, but Whitaker's reach was relentless, his retaliation striking at Lena's core. The safe house, her sanctuary, was ash, and her mother's safety hung by a thread. Lena's hands trembled as she clutched the note, the fire's heat lingering on her skin. The ledgers were safe, but the firebombing was Whitaker's message. No one defied him and lived. She thought of Tasha, shanked in the jail yard, and Elaine targeted with hate mail. Every step forward brought harsher blows, Whitaker's empire crushing her allies and her family. Lena's FBI badge, hidden in her pocket, felt like a lie. Her mission was now survival. She texted Sonia, arranging a meet to regroup, but the smirking man's shadow loomed, his presence a constant threat. Lena slipped into an alley, the city's pulse drowning her fear, but one truth burned clear. Whitaker wouldn't stop until she was broken, and she wouldn't stop until he was exposed. Rain lashed Miami's streets, drenching Lena Carter as she crouched in an alley, the safe house firebombing's acrid smoke still stinging her lungs. Judge Roland Whitaker's note, pinned to a crate amid the flames, echoed in her mind. "Your mother's life is next, troublemaker." The ledgers she'd stolen from Kessler's office, proof of Whitaker's prison profiteering with Coral Reef Corrections, were safe with Justice Now, but her mother, Elaine, 250 miles away in Tampa, was now Whitaker's target. The protest's collapse, her jail assault, and the slur-scrawled threats had battered Lena's resolve, but losing Elaine would break her. As a fugitive, her FBI cover teetered, the smirking man's shadow a constant threat. Lena's burner phone buzzed, a text from Elaine's co-worker. Clinic got a letter. Elaine's accused of stealing funds. Lena's heart sank. Whitaker was framing her mother for embezzlement, a cruel escalation from the hate mail. She texted Sonia Reyes, arranging a meet at a diner 3 miles away, needing Justice Now's resources to fight back. The rain blurred the neon lights, but Lena's mission burned clear. Save Elaine, expose Whitaker, and end his anti-black empire. The diner's fluorescent glow felt like a trap, its vinyl booths slick with grease. Sonia slid in, her face pale, from the car accident Whitaker's goons had staged. "Elaine's in trouble," Lena said, her voice low. "Whitaker's framing her. I need a secure laptop to hack the courts." Sonia nodded, passing a device under the table. "Justice Now's got your back, but Whitaker's tightening the screws." Lena's fingers flew over the keys, accessing Miami's court servers through a backdoor her FBI training had taught her. She found Elaine's file, doctored to show $10,000 siphoned from the clinic. Rage surged, but Lena focused, rewriting the records to expose the tampering, linking it to Whitaker's clerk. By dawn, she'd cleared Elaine's name. The clinic dropping the charges. Her chest swelled with relief, a rare win against Whitaker's machine. She called Elaine, her voice steady. "You're safe, Mum. Stay in Tampa." Elaine's sigh was audible, but fear lingered. "He won't." "Stop, Lena." The victory was hers, but Lena knew Whitaker's retaliation was coming, and it would be brutal. Lena's triumph lasted hours. As she left the diner, her burner phone pinged with an anonymous message. "We know where you are, Carter." Her pulse spiked. Whitaker had leaked her location. She sprinted through the rain-soaked streets, the city's 90-degree humidity suffocating. A pickup truck roared behind her, its headlights blinding, and 4 men in militia gear jumped out, their faces twisted with hate. "You're the one messing with Whitaker!" one shouted, his voice thick with racism, a Confederate flag patch on his sleeve. Lena's heart raced, her knife in hand, but she was outnumbered. They lunged and she dodged, her FBI training guiding her. A blade grazed her arm, blood mixing with rain, and she fought back, landing a kick that sent one man sprawling. The alley's walls closed in, puddles splashing as she parried blows, her wound burning. She grabbed a pipe, swinging it to clear a path, and sprinted, the militia's curses echoing. Her arm throbbed, the knife wound shallow but stinging. And she ducked into a storm drain, her gasps muffled by the downpour. The militia passed, their truck roaring away. But Lena knew Whitaker had orchestrated this, his hatred weaponizing vigilantes to hunt her. Lena bandaged her wound in a gas station bathroom, the fluorescent light harsh on her pale face. Her burner. Phone buzzed again, a news alert. "Tampa house fire, suspected arson." Her stomach dropped. It was Elaine's bungalow, reduced to ash. She called Elaine, her voice shaking. "I'm okay," Elaine said, safe with her cousin. "But they burned everything, Lena. Pictures, clothes, all gone." Lena's eyes stung, guilt crashing over her. Whitaker's retaliation had escalated, destroying Elaine's home to break her. She drove to Tampa, 250 miles in a stolen car, the rain blurring the highway. Elaine waited at a motel, her face etched with exhaustion. "You can't keep doing this," Elaine said, hugging her. Lena's resolve wavered, but she couldn't stop. She took Elaine to a new safe house, a cabin 15 miles outside Miami, hidden in mangroves. The wooden walls creaked, but it felt secure, a refuge from Whitaker's reach. Lena checked the perimeter, her arm aching, and settled Elaine with a burner phone. "Stay here, Mom. I'll end this," she promised, her voice fierce but hollow. "The Safehouse's quiet was a lie. As Lena unpacked supplies, a faint hum caught her ear, a blinking light under a table. Her heart sank. A bug, its tiny lens glinting, was wired into the wall. She smashed it, her fist trembling, but the damage was done. Whitaker's people had found the safe house, her mother's sanctuary compromised. Her phone buzzed. Another. Anonymous text, "Nowhere to hide, troublemaker." Lena's blood ran cold. Whitaker's surveillance was relentless, his empire striking at her family with surgical precision. She checked Elaine, asleep but safe, and stepped outside, the mangrove's damp air heavy. The ledgers, with Justice Now, were her only leverage, but the militia ambush and fire proved Whitaker would burn everything to stop her. Sonia's loyalty was her lifeline, but the smirking man's shadow loomed, his role unclear. Lena's FBI badge, tucked in her pocket, felt heavier, a symbol of a system failing her. She had cleared Elaine's name, but at what cost? The rain slowed, but the storm of Whitaker's wrath was far from over. Comment number 1 if you're shaken by Whitaker's cruelty. Hit like and subscribe to see Lena's next fight. Can she protect Elaine, or will Whitaker's next blow be the one that breaks her? Lena Carter's boots crunched through the mangrove muck outside the bugged safe house. Her mother Elaine asleep inside, unaware of the blinking device Lena had smashed moments ago. The 90-degree Miami night buzzed with mosquitoes, but the chill of Judge Roland Whitaker's text, "Nowhere to hide, troublemaker," froze her blood. His militia ambush, leaving a knife wound on her arm, and the arson that razed Elaine's Tampa home were escalating blows, each tied to his prison profiteering scheme with coral reef corrections. Lena's FBI cover was fraying, the smirking man's shadow a constant threat. She'd cleared Elaine's embezzlement frame-up, but the bug proved Whitaker's reach was relentless, targeting her family to break her. Lena needed Justice Now's help to protect Elaine and use the stolen ledgers to end Whitaker. She texted Sonia Reyes, arranging a meet at a shuttered factory 4 miles away, her heart heavy with doubt. Sonia's memos had kept the fight alive, but the safe house breach hinted at betrayal. Lena slipped into the darkness, her knife in her boot. The ledgers with Carla Diaz her only leverage against Whitaker's empire. The factory's rusted gates loomed under a flickering street lamp, its broken windows like empty eyes. Sonia waited. Inside, her face gaunt, her hands trembling. "We're losing," she said, her voice cracking. Lena's gut twisted. Something was off. "What's wrong?" she asked, her eyes scanning the shadows. Sonia's gaze dropped, tears welling. "Whitaker got to me, Lena. He threatened my brother in prison. I leaked your plans, the protest, the sting." Lena's heart plummeted, Sonia's betrayal cutting deeper than the militia's blade. "You led them to the safe house?" she demanded, her voice sharp. Sonia nodded, sobbing. "I had no choice, but I'm done. I'll help you now, I swear." Lena's fists clenched, rage warring with necessity. She needed Sonia's network, but trust was shattered. "Prove it," Lena said, her tone cold. Sonia offered a lead. A coral reef whistleblower, a former accountant named Derek Wells, ready to testify about Whitaker's bribes. Lena memorized the meet location, a pier 7 miles away, but Sonia's confession gnawed at her. Was this redemption or another trap? Lena reached the pier at midnight, the ocean's waves crashing under a starless sky. Derek waited by a rusted crane, his wiry frame tense, a briefcase at his feet. "I cooked Whitaker's books," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "He paid me to hide millions from Coral Reef, all for black convictions." Lena's pulse surged as he opened the briefcase, revealing bank statements and emails, a goldmine of evidence. "Testify," she urged, her hope flaring. Derek nodded, handing her a flash drive with backups. "I'm done hiding," he said. Lena's chest swelled. This testimony could force the FBI to act, cracking Whitaker's empire. She thanked him, slipping the drive into her pocket, and left, her mind racing with plans to deliver it to Marcus Tate. The pier's salt air felt like freedom, but as she reached her stolen car, a police scanner crackled nearby. Her instincts screamed danger, Whitaker's shadow looming. She drove off, the city's neon lights blurring, unaware the trap was already closing. Lena's hope shattered by Morning. Her burner phone buzzed with a news alert. Accountant found dead at Miami Pier, suspected homicide. Derek's face flashed on the screen, his throat slit, the briefcase gone. Lena's stomach churned, her hands shaking as she read on. Lena Carter, fugitive, wanted for murder. Her blood ran cold. Whitaker had framed her, turning her ally's testimony into a death sentence. She pulled over 3 miles from the pier, her heart pounding. The news showed grainy footage, doctored to place her at the scene. Her knife from the militia ambush planted as evidence. Whitaker's influence was a vice, squeezing her life away. Billboards across Miami lit up, her face plastered with "Wanted, Killer" in bold red, offering a $50,000 reward. A city-wide manhunt launched, cop cars patrolling every corner, their sirens a constant wail. Lena's cover was blown, her FBI badge useless against Whitaker's lies. She ditched the car, slipping into an alley, her wound throbbing as she fought panic. Elaine was her only anchor, but Whitaker's next move would target her. Lena's fears were confirmed hours later. A text from Elaine's cousin in Tampa. "Elaine's in the hospital, car accident. Cops say it's your fault." Lena's knees buckled, guilt crashing over her. She called the hospital, her voice trembling. "She's stable," a nurse said, "but the crash wasn't random. Someone cut her brakes." Lena's eyes stung. Whitaker's staged accident a cruel echo of Sonia's car wreck. The police report blamed Lena's reckless behavior, claiming her fugitive status provoked vigilantes. Elaine's injuries, a broken arm and concussion, were minor, but the message was clear. Whitaker would destroy her family. Lena's mind raced, replaying Sonia's betrayal, Derek's bloodied body, and the billboards branding her a murderer. She needed a new safe house, but the last was bugged, and Justice Now was compromised. She texted Carla, begging for a hideout, and headed to a motel 10 miles away, its neon sign flickering. The room smelled of mildew, but it was a lifeline, or so she thought. Inside, Lena checked her flash drive, Derek's files intact, but her options were dwindling. Sirens wailed outside. Closer now, and her burner phone's battery died, cutting her off from Marcus. She paced, her arms wound pulsing, the weight of the manhunt crushing her. Whitaker had turned Miami against her, his empire's tentacles in every precinct, every newsroom. Sonia's confession was a wound that wouldn't heal, but Lena had no choice but to trust Carla. The ledgers and Derek's drive were her last weapons, but delivering them meant risking capture. Elaine's hospitalization was a knife to her heart, Whitaker's cruelty stripping away her family. Lena's FBI training kept her moving, but doubt crept in. Had Sonia betrayed her again, or was someone else feeding Whitaker her every step? The motel's walls closed in, and Lena knew the smirking man was out there orchestrating her downfall. Lena Carter's hands trembled as she crouched in the motel room, its mildew-stained walls closing in under Miami's 90-degree heat. The city-wide manhunt, with her face on billboards as a killer, had turned every shadow into a threat. Judge Roland Whitaker's frame-up, for Derek Wells's murder cutting deeper than the knife wound on her arm. Her mother, Elaine, hospitalized after a staged car accident, was Whitaker's latest target. His prison profiteering empire with coral reef corrections, relentless in its cruelty. Sonia's betrayal, leaking Lena's plans, and the bugged safe house, had shattered her trust, leaving Justice Now's Carla Diaz as her only ally. The flash drive from Derek, tucked in her pocket, held bank statements tying Whitaker to millions in bribes for black convictions, her last hope to expose him. Lena's FBI cover was gone, her badge a hollow symbol, but she refused to break. She needed a platform to reach the world, bypass Whitaker's media control. Carla texted, "Meet at the loft, 2 miles away. We've got a plan." Lena slipped out, the city's neon lights flickering, the smirking man's shadow haunting her every step. The loft, a Justice Now hideout, buzzed with tension, its exposed beams lit by laptops. Carla handed Lena a burner phone, its camera ready. "Live stream?" "The truth," Carla said, her voice fierce. "We'll boost it to every platform. Whitaker can't silence the internet." Lena nodded, her heart pounding, and synced Derek's drive to the phone, uploading bank statements and emails. She hit record, her face pale but resolute. and spoke to the camera. "I'm Lena Carter, framed by Judge Whitaker for fighting his corruption. He's paid millions by Coral Reef to lock up black kids, ruining lives for profit." She held up the drive, her voice steady. "This is proof. Demand justice." Carla streamed it to social media, and within minutes, views skyrocketed, reaching 1 million, then 10 million. Protests erupted across Miami, crowds flooding the streets, their chants echoing 5 miles to the courthouse. Lena's chest swelled, the world finally hearing her. News outlets picked up the stream, and Marcus Tate, her former handler, texted, "Feds are moving, you did it." For the first time, Lena felt Whitaker's empire cracking, her live stream a beacon of hope in a city drowning in lies. The victory collapsed in seconds. The live stream froze, then cut to doctored footage. Lena, her voice manipulated, confessing to Derek's murder and forging the drive's files. Her heart sank as comments turned venomous, calling her a liar, a criminal. Whitaker's allies had hacked the feed, their cyber attack seamless, her credibility shredded. Protesters dispersed, their hopes snuffed out, and news anchors branded Lena a fraud, her face once again a target. She smashed the phone, her hands shaking, rage and despair warring within her. Carla's eyes widened. "They're too fast, Lena. Whitaker's got tech we can't match." Lena's mind raced. The hack was surgical, Whitaker's empire anticipating her every move. She grabbed the drive, her only proof, and bolted for the door, Carla shouting, "Where are you going?" Lena didn't answer, her sneakers pounding the stairs. The loft was compromised, and Whitaker's next strike was coming, his retaliation always one step ahead. Lena reached a hideout, a boarded-up bar 3 miles from the loft, its windows dark. She barricaded the door, her breath ragged, the drive clutched in her fist. The city's sirens wailed, the manhunt tightening, but a new sound chilled her. Shouts outside, fists pounding the walls. Vigilantes, their voices thick with hate, circled the bar, their flashlights piercing the cracks. "Come out, murderer," one yelled, his slur cutting through the night. Lena's pulse surged, the knife wound on her arm, throbbing as she gripped her knife. The vigilantes, fueled by Whitaker's lies, smashed a window, glass shattering across the floor. Lena's FBI training kicked in, her eyes scanning for escape. She pried open a back door, slipping into an alley, but the mob followed, their boots splashing through puddles. A brick grazed her shoulder, pain flaring, and she sprinted, weaving through dumpsters, her lungs burning. The vigilantes' shouts faded, but Lena's heart didn't slow. The city no longer a refuge but a cage, Whitaker's hatred turning strangers into hunters. Lena found a payphone, 1 mile from the bar, its receiver sticky with grime. She called Elaine's hospital, her voice trembling. The nurse's tone was cold. "Your mother's room was vandalized, Miss Carter. Slurs on the walls, windows broken. She's safe but shaken." Lena's knees buckled, guilt crashing over her. Whitaker's goons had struck again, their racial slurs a mirror of the ones on Elaine's burned home, each attack more personal. Elaine's voice came through, faint but firm. "Keep fighting, Lena, I'm okay." Lena's eyes stung, her mother's strength a lifeline. She hung up, the drive her only weapon. But the vigilante attack and hospital vandalism were Whitaker's message. No one she loved was safe. She texted Carla, begging for a new hideout, and headed to a church 6 miles away, its steeple a faint hope. The pews smelled of wax, but as she sank into one, a shadow moved outside, the smirking man's silhouette unmistakable. Whitaker's empire was relentless, and Lena's fight was bleeding her dry. Lena Carter's breath fogged in the church's shadowed pews, the Miami night's 90-degree humidity seeping through the cracked stained glass windows. Judge Roland Whitaker's vigilante attack and the racial slurs defacing her mother Elaine's hospital room had shattered Lena's hope, his hacked livestream turning her truth into a lie. The flash drive from Derek Wells, proof of Whitaker's bribes from Coral Reef Corrections, was her last weapon, but the city-wide manhunt branded her a murderer, her face on every billboard. Sonia's betrayal and the bugged safe house left Lena isolated, with Justice Now's Carla Diaz her only ally. Elaine, recovering in Tampa, was a target, Whitaker's empire striking at her family to break her. Lena's FBI cover was dust, her badge a painful reminder of a system failing her. She needed Marcus Tate, her former handler, demoted for backing her. His text, "Meet me, old peer, 3 miles out," was a lifeline, but the smirking man's silhouette outside the church chilled her. Lena slipped into the darkness, her knife in her boot, the drive in her pocket, knowing trust was a gamble she couldn't afford. The pier's rusted pilings groaned under crashing waves, the salt air sharp in Lena's lungs. Marcus stood by a crate, his face haggard, his FBI jacket replaced by a worn hoodie. "They sidelined me for helping you," he said, his voice low. "Whitaker's got the bureau scared, but I'm in. Let's end him." Lena's heart lifted, his loyalty a rare spark. She showed him the drive detailing Whitaker's millions in bribes for black convictions. "His chambers have tapes," Marcus said, "recordings of his deals with Kessler. Get those and the feds can't ignore it." Lena nodded, their plan forming. Infiltrate the courthouse 6 miles downtown and crack Whitaker's safe. Marcus's knowledge of security protocols was her edge, but doubt gnawed at her. Sonia's betrayal had burned her, and the smirking man's presence lingered. She followed Marcus to a van, her wound throbbing, the drive her anchor. The city's neon lights blurred, but Lena's resolve held, her mission to save Elaine and countless black youth driving her forward. The courthouse loomed at midnight, its marble facade a monument to Whitaker's corruption. Lena and Marcus posed as maintenance workers, their fake IDs passing the guard's scan. The basement access was their entry, its damp corridors lit by flickering bulbs. Lena's FBI training guided her, her lockpick steady as she opened the service elevator. They reached the 5th floor, Whitaker's chambers locked with a keypad. Marcus punched in a code stolen from a disgruntled clerk, and the door clicked open. Inside, a safe gleamed under a portrait of Whitaker, his sneer haunting. Lena cracked it, her tools precise, and found a stack of tapes labeled with dates and names. Kessler's among them. Her pulse surged, the tapes a deathblow to Whitaker's empire. She stuffed them into her bag, her hope flaring, but Marcus's face shifted, his eyes avoiding hers. "Lena, I'm sorry," he whispered, stepping back. Her stomach dropped as the door slammed shut, security alarms blaring. Marcus had betrayed her, delivering the tapes to Whitaker for a promotion, his loyalty a lie. Lena's heart raced, the basement trap closing in. Footsteps pounded outside, guards shouting, their radios crackling with orders to secure the fugitive. She scanned the room, spotting a vent above the desk, its grill loose. Her knife pried it open, her wound screaming as she climbed, the tapes banging against her hip. The vent's metal scraped her skin, but she crawled, her breath ragged, emerging in a utility closet 1 floor down. Guards stormed the chambers above, their boots echoing, but Lena slipped into the basement, its pipes hissing steam. A guard spotted her, his gun drawn, and she dove behind a boiler, tossing a wrench to distract him. The clatter bought her seconds, and she sprinted for the exit, bursting into an alley, the humid air hitting her like a wave. Sirens wailed, but Lena vanished into the night, the tapes hers, Marcus's betrayal a knife to her heart. Whitaker's empire had turned her last ally, and her escape was a fleeting victory, his next move already in motion. Lena's relief was crushed by morning. News alerts flooded her burner phone. FBI labels Lena Carter a terrorist, threat to national security. Her blood ran cold. Whitaker had bribed the Bureau, escalating her manhunt to a federal level. Her face, now on every screen, was tied to fabricated plots. The tape's theft spun as espionage. The city's pulse turned hostile, strangers' eyes hunting her. She called Elaine's hospital, her voice trembling. A nurse answered, her tone sharp. "Your mother's been evicted from the Tampa safe house. Owner got threats, said you're a terrorist. She's homeless, Ms. Carter." Lena's knees buckled, guilt and rage crashing over her. Elaine, still recovering, was on the streets, Whitaker's cruelty stripping her last refuge. Lena texted Carla, begging for a new hideout, and headed to a warehouse 8 miles away, its rusted walls a faint hope. The drive and tapes were her weapons, But Marcus's betrayal and the terrorist label had cornered her, Whitaker's empire tightening its grip. The warehouse's shadows offered no comfort, its crates reeking of oil. Lena checked the tapes, their audio intact, but her options were gone. Cop cars patrolled nearby, their lights slicing the night, and her phone's battery flickered, her link to Carla fading. Elaine's homelessness was a wound Whitaker had carved, each retaliation more brutal than the last. Lena's FBI training kept her moving, but despair crept in. Marcus, Sonia, the system, all had failed her, leaving her to fight alone. The smirking man's role was unclear, but his presence was a noose, tightening with every step. Lena clutched the tapes, her mother's face in her mind, and vowed to keep going, but the warehouse's silence felt like a trap, Whitaker's next strike lurking in the dark. Lena Carter's pulse thundered as she crouched in the warehouse's shadows, the creak of crates masking Miami's distant sirens. Judge Roland Whitaker's terrorist label, branding her a national threat, had turned every street into a trap, his empire's billboards flashing her face as a murderer. Her mother, Elaine, evicted from the Tampa safe house and homeless, was Whitaker's latest victim, his Coral Reef corrections scheme crushing black lives for profit. Marcus Tate's betrayal, delivering the stolen tapes to Whitaker, had gutted Lena, leaving the flash drive from Derek Wells her only proof. Justice Now's Carla Diaz was her last ally, but the smirking man's silhouette haunted her, his role in Whitaker's plans unclear. Lena's FBI badge, tucked in her pocket, was a relic of a broken system, her cover shattered. Carla's text, "Crash Whitaker's Gala, 4 miles downtown," sparked a desperate plan. The re-election event was Lena's chance to expose him, publicly, using the tapes she'd salvaged. She slipped into the humid 90-degree night, her knife wound aching, knowing this was her final stand. The gala, held at a glitzy hotel, glittered with chandeliers and power brokers, its marble halls 6 stories high. Lena posed as a caterer, her stolen uniform tight, the tapes and drive hidden in her apron. Security was heavy, Whitaker's influence clear in the armed guards' watchful eyes. She navigated the crowd, champagne flutes clinking, her heart pounding. As she spotted Whitaker on a dais, his smile smug, Carla had hacked the hotel's AV system, ready to broadcast the tapes. Lena reached a control room, 2 floors up, and plugged in the drive. Her hands steady, despite the fear clawing her chest. She took a breath, then stormed the stage, shoving past a stunned MC. "I'm Lena Carter, FBI," she shouted, ripping her badge from her pocket, its silver glinting under spotlights. Gasps rippled through the crowd as she hit play, the tapes blaring Whitaker's voice, arranging bribes with Kessler for black convictions. "He's selling our kids for millions," Lena roared, pointing at Whitaker. The crowd froze, their faces a mix of shock and outrage, phones recording every word. Lena's chest swelled, her truth finally heard. Whitaker's empire exposed in a blaze of light. The victory was electric but fleeting. Whitaker's face twisted, his calm shattering as FBI agents, alerted by Carla's tip, surged forward, cuffing him. "You're done!" Lena shouted, her voice echoing. The crowd erupted, some cheering, others shouting in disbelief, but Whitaker's eyes locked on hers, a chilling smirk forming. He nodded to a guard and chaos exploded. Smoke bombs detonated, their clouds choking the ballroom, and hired thugs in the crowd swung bats, smashing tables. Screams filled the air as guests fled, the scene spiraling into a riot. Police stormed in, their megaphones blaring, "Lena Carter, instigator." Lena's heart sank. Whitaker had staged the riot, framing her as the cause. The agents hesitated, their cuffs on Whitaker, but the narrative shifted, news cameras capturing Lena amidst the chaos. She bolted, her sneakers slipping on spilled champagne, and reached a balcony 3 stories above the street. The crowd below rioted, Whitaker's plan turning her triumph into a trap, her badge now a liability. Lena's breath caught as she gripped the balcony's railing, the city's neon lights blurring below. A figure emerged from the smoke. Marcus Tate, his face ashen. "Lena, I didn't want this," he said, his voice breaking. "Whitaker threatened my kids, my wife. I had to give him the tapes." Lena's rage flared, her fist clenching, but his eyes held genuine fear. "I tipped the feds about the gala," he added, "to make it right." Her heart twisted, his coercion a mirror of Sonia's, Whitaker's cruelty breaking everyone. Before she could respond, a red laser dot danced on her chest. A sniper's. Aim from a rooftop across the street. Lena's instincts kicked in and she dove behind a planter, the bullet grazing the railing, sparks flying. Marcus pulled her down, his breath ragged. "Run, Lena, he won't stop!" She scrambled to her feet, the drive still in her apron, and sprinted for the stairwell, her wound throbbing. The sniper's shots echoed, glass shattering, but Lena dodged, her FBI training saving her as she vanished into the hotel's depths. The stairwell's concrete walls echoed with sirens, the riot's chaos spilling into the streets. Lena's mind raced, Whitaker's arrest a hollow win, his staged riot painting her as a terrorist. Marcus's confession explained his betrayal, but trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. The tapes had played, the world had heard, but Whitaker's, Smirk told her he wasn't done. She reached the basement, its pipes hissing, and slipped into an alley, the humid air heavy with smoke. Carla's text buzzed. "Hideout! 5 miles north! Move!" Lena ran, her sneakers splashing through puddles, the drive her only proof now. Elaine's homelessness and the sniper's bullet were Whitaker's latest blows, each more brutal than the last. The smirking man's role gnawed at her, his presence a constant shadow. Lena's badge, once her shield, was a target, but she wouldn't break. The hideout was her last chance, but as she ran, a police chopper's spotlight swept the streets, Whitaker's empire hunting her without mercy. Lena Carter's sneakers skidded through Miami's rain-slicked alleys, the police chopper's spotlight slicing the 90-degree night behind her. Judge Roland Whitaker's staged riot at his gala, framing her as a terrorist instigator, had turned her FBI badge reveal into a trap, the sniper's bullet grazing the balcony she'd escaped. Her mother, Elaine, homeless and targeted, was Whitaker's cruel leverage, his coral reef corrections empire profiting off black lives. The flash, drive from Derek Wells, and the stolen tapes, proof of Whitaker's bribes, were Lena's last weapons clutched in her trembling hands. Marcus Tate's coerced betrayal and the smirking man's shadow haunted her, but Justice Now's Carla Diaz offered a hideout 5 miles north. Lena's wound throbbed, her FBI cover shattered, yet her resolve burned. Carla's plan was bold. Use hidden recordings from the tapes to pit Whitaker's prison CEO allies against him, sparking chaos to weaken his grip. Lena reached the hideout, a derelict gym, its rusted weights scattered, and found Carla rigging a laptop. "Ready to turn his snakes on each other?" Carla asked, her eyes fierce. Lena nodded, her heart pounding, knowing this was her last chance. To end Whitaker's reign, Carla uploaded snippets of the tapes, isolating Kessler's voice implicating other CEOs in Whitaker's bribes. Lena's FBI training guided her edits, crafting a message to Coral Reef's board. "Kessler's selling you out to save himself." They sent it anonymously, the email bouncing through encrypted servers. Within hours, news broke of boardroom fights, CEOs accusing each other of betrayal, their stock plummeting. Lena's pulse surged as Carla monitored social media, posts raging against Coral Reef's corruption. The chaos was working, Whitaker's allies fracturing under greed and fear. Miami streets erupted, protesters flooding downtown, their chants echoing 10 miles demanding Whitaker's empire fall. Lena watched from the gym's cracked window, the crowd signs a sea of defiance, shielding her from police patrols. Her chest swelled, the tape's impact a fleeting victory, but Whitaker's arrest hadn't stopped him. The smirking man's role gnawed at her, his presence a threat she couldn't place. Carla handed her a burner phone. "Time for the kill shot. Broadcast his confession now." Lena's hands shook as she synced the tapes to the phone, selecting Whitaker's clearest confession. "I get 10,000 per black kid locked up, Kessler. Keep the pipeline full." She rigged a live feed, Carla boosting it to every platform, her face hidden to dodge the manhunt. The broadcast launched, her voice steady. "This is Lena Carter exposing Judge Whitaker's prison scheme. He's behind bars, but his corruption lives. Listen." The tape played, Whitaker's words chilling and views soared past 20 million. Protesters roaring louder, their fists raised. News vans swarmed, anchors scrambling to cover the exposé, and FBI statements hinted at new charges. Lena's heart raced, the city's pulse with her. Whitaker's empire crumbling under the truth. She texted Elaine, safe in a new shelter 7 miles away. "We're close, Mom." For a moment, Lena believed she'd won. The tapes and drive. Vindicating her fight. The crowd's defiance a shield against Whitaker's lies. But his smirk at the gala lingered, a warning of his next move. The victory shattered with a phone call. A voice, cold and unfamiliar, hissed, "Whitaker says goodbye, Carter." Her blood ran cold. He'd ordered a hit from jail, his reach unbroken. Sirens wailed closer, police closing in, but a new alert flashed. Bomb threat at Liberty Shelter, evacuation underway. Lena's stomach dropped. It was Elaine's shelter, Whitaker's final trap. She sprinted from the gym, Carla shouting, "Lena, wait!" The shelter was 7 miles away, and Lena stole a bike, pedaling through traffic, her wound burning. Protesters clogged the streets, their chaos shielding her from cops, their signs waving like flags. She reached the shelter, a brick building engulfed in flames, smoke billowing into the night. Firefighters battled the blaze, but evacuees screamed, "Someone's still inside." Lena's heart stopped. Elaine was trapped. She tore through the crowd, her knife cutting a path, and plunged into the burning building, the heat searing her skin. The air choked with ash, beams crashing, but Lena's training kept her moving, her mother's face her only focus. Inside, flames licked the walls, the shelter's halls a maze of smoke. Lena coughed, her eyes stinging, and called, "Mom!" A faint cry answered, and she followed, crawling under debris, her wound splitting open, blood soaking her sleeve. She found Elaine in a stairwell, her leg pinned by a fallen shelf, her face pale. "Lena!" Elaine gasped. "Go back!" Lena shook her head, her strength fading, and heaved the shelf, her muscles screaming. She pulled Elaine free, half carrying her through the inferno, windows shattering around them. A beam fell, grazing Lena's shoulder. Pain exploding, but she pushed on, the exit a glowing beacon. They burst outside, collapsing in the grass, firefighters rushing to them, the crowd cheering. Lena's vision blurred, Elaine safe in her arms. But the bomb threat was Whitaker's doing, his hit a calculated strike. The drive and tapes were with Carla, but Lena's fight wasn't over. The smirking man's shadow still lurking. Lena's breath steadied as medics bandaged her, the shelter's flames dying under hoses. The protesters' chants grew louder, their defiance a wall against Whitaker's lies, but his jail-ordered hit proved his empire's depth. Elaine's hand gripped hers. "You saved me, but at what cost?" Lena's eyes stung, guilt and resolve warring. The broadcast had exposed Whitaker, but the bomb showed he'd never stop. Carla texted, "Tapes are safe, but cops are coming, hide." Lena helped Elaine to a medic van, her mother's safety her anchor, but the city was a battlefield. Whitaker's. Allies still free. The smirking man's role was clearer now, a fixer pulling strings, and Lena vowed to find him. Her badge was gone, but her fight for black lives burned, Whitaker's empire teetering, yet not broken. Lena Carter's lungs burned as she clutched Elaine, collapsing in the grass outside the blazing Liberty Shelter, Miami's 90-degree night heavy with ash and the crowd's defiant chants. The bomb threat, Judge Roland Whitaker's final strike from jail, had nearly killed her mother, trapped in the burning building Lena had raced through. Her knife wound splitting open, blood soaking her sleeve. The flash drive and tapes, exposing Whitaker's Coral Reef corrections bribes for black convictions, were safe with Justice Now's Carla Diaz, their live stream sparking protests that shielded Lena from police. Whitaker's empire teetered, his CEO allies fractured, but the smirking man's shadow lingered, his role a lingering threat. Elaine's hand gripped hers, her voice weak. "You saved me, Lena, but this isn't over." Lena's heart ached, her FBI cover shattered, her badge a lie. The chopper's spotlight faded, protesters scattering, but Whitaker's hit proved his reach, even cuffed. Lena helped Elaine to a medic van, her resolve steeling, knowing the fight for black lives wasn't done. She texted Carla, "Get the drive to the feds now," and scanned the crowd, the smirking man nowhere, yet everywhere. The next morning, news broke. Whitaker was convicted, his tapes undeniable, Coral Reef's stock crashed, and Kessler indicted. Lena watched from a safe house, 8 miles from the shelter, its peeling walls a temporary refuge. Protesters filled Miami streets 10 miles downtown, their signs demanding systemic change, and Lena's chest swelled, her sacrifices vindicating countless black youth. Elaine, recovering in a new shelter, called, her voice steady. "You did it, baby." Lena's eyes stung, but the victory felt hollow, Whitaker's empire crumbling yet not destroyed. She flipped through channels, anchors praising the anonymous whistleblower, her terrorist label fading, but her face still haunted screens. Carla arrived, her face grim, and handed Lena a printed email, its source encrypted. "This hit the dark web," Carla said. "FBI memo leaked." Lena's pulse surged as she read, Marcus Tate, her handler, was a double agent, feeding Whitaker intel to protect Coral Reef, implicating her FBI superiors in the prison scheme. Her blood ran cold, Marcus's betrayal at the gala now a deeper wound, the system she'd served rotten to its core. Lena's hands shook, the memo a bombshell that reframed her fight. Marcus's coercion, his family threatened, was a lie, his loyalty always to Whitaker's allies. The FBI's complicity explained their hesitation, their demotion of Marcus a cover, her mission sabotaged from within. She paced the safe house, its stale air suffocating, her badge heavy in her pocket. It was no longer a shield but a symbol of betrayal, a system that profited off black suffering. Carla's voice cut through. "Feds cleared you, Lena, but they're hunting the leak. You're a ghost now." Lena's heart sank, her name restored but her life erased, forced into hiding to evade Whitaker's lingering allies and her own agency's wrath. She burned her badge in a trash can, its metal melting, her identity as an agent gone. Elaine's safety was her anchor, but the memo revealed a truth. The prison scheme wasn't just Whitaker's, it was systemic, rooted in a justice system built to oppress. Lena's fight had only begun, the smirking man's role still a mystery. His shadow, a call to keep digging. A knock jolted her, a courier dropping an envelope through the safe house's slot, no return address. Inside, a handwritten note. "Judge Harlan Voss Tampa, same game as Whitaker. Fight on." Lena's breath caught, the anonymous tip a spark, exposing another corrupt judge, another prison pipeline. Her hands steadied, the note a challenge, urging her to continue, but fear gnawed at her. Elaine, now stable, needed protection, and Lena's fugitive status made every move a risk. She called Elaine, her voice firm. "We're leaving Miami, Mum, somewhere safe." Elaine's sigh was heavy. "I trust you, but this fight's bigger than us." Lena nodded, tears welling, and packed a bag, the drive and tapes with Carla, destined for the feds. The safe house's walls felt like a cage, but Lena's spirit was unbroken, the note her new mission. She stepped outside, the humid air thick, and stared at Miami's skyline, its neon lights a battlefield. The smirking man was out there, Voss's ally, and Lena's defiance burned, ready for the next fight, her scars a testament to her resolve. The skyline's glow faded as Lena slipped into the night, Elaine waiting at a bus station 15 miles away. The memo's revelation, Marcus's treachery and Voss's corruption shocked her. The systemic rot deeper than she'd imagined. Every black life Whitaker had crushed, every family torn apart, fueled her. But the cost was her identity, her home, her trust. The note's challenge was a call to arms, but the road ahead was perilous. Whitaker's allies and the FBI's betrayal closing in. Lena's sneakers crunched on gravel, her wound a dull ache, but her eyes were clear, fixed on the horizon. The fight wasn't over, Voss's pipeline her next target, and she'd expose it no matter the cost. Miami's pulse echoed her heartbeat, a city awakened by her truth, and Lena vanished into the shadows, a fugitive hero, her defiance a beacon for justice. The Mask of Justice unveils profound lessons about resilience, systemic racism, and the cost of truth. Lena Carter's battle against Judge Roland Whitaker's corrupt prison empire exposes the harsh reality of racial injustice, where black lives are commodified for profit. Her journey teaches us that fighting systemic oppression demands unwavering courage, even when betrayal and danger lurk at every turn. Lena's sacrifices, from losing her FBI identity to risking her mother's safety, highlight the personal toll of challenging a racist system, yet her defiance proves one person's truth can spark change. The story reveals how deeply racism is embedded in institutions, from courts to the FBI, showing that victories are often incomplete, with new battles like Judge Voss's corruption waiting. It underscores the power of community, as Miami's protesters shielded Lena, proving collective action can amplify a single voice. Most crucially, it challenges us to question justice systems that fail the marginalized, urging vigilance against those who profit from suffering. Lena's choice to fight on, despite losing everything, inspires us to confront injustice no matter the odds. Her story is a call to recognize and dismantle the racist structures that persist, ensuring no one fights alone. What would you risk to expose a racist system in your community? Comment number 1 to share your thoughts. Hit like, subscribe, and share to spread this powerful message. Thank you for joining Lena's fight, and may you find strength to stand for justice in your own battles.